On social media, when we put something out with a pro-life message, quite often the two words are posted in response: Handmaid's Tale. As though those two words just refute the argument completely. The case is closed because the novel Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood has already dealt with the issue. All those arguments about the value of the unborn human life, they're just finished because Handmaid's Tale. So let's see what it's all about. Now, the reason I'm talking about this book is mainly it's a very popular text for English literature students in Scotland at advanced higher level, I understand. So this is part of the education curriculum. So what's the book about? Here's a quick summary from Wikipedia. It's set in a near future New England in a strongly patriarchal, totalitarian, theonomic state. Theonomic means governed by God's law, if you like, known as the Republic of Gilead, which has overthrown the United States government. The central character and narrator is a woman named Offred, one of the group known as handmaids, who are forcibly assigned to produce children for the commanders, the ruling class men in Gilead. The novel explores themes of subjugated women in a patriarchal society, loss of female agency and individuality, and the various means by which they resist and attempt to gain individuality and independence. So in a sense, I think it's often interpreted as a feminist cautionary tale. This is where we'd be if it weren't for feminist. And the way a lot of people seem to interpret the book is that this idea of forced sex and forced pregnancy and the abortion ban, women who have abortions experience sort of horrific punishments. And the idea is that these two things, forced pregnancy and preventing abortion, they're packaged together with a label on the package called controlling women's reproduction. So it's almost as though the implication is there's a slippery slope. If you ban abortion, then it's going to lead to forcing women to become pregnant, because it's part of the same package, it's part of the same philosophy. I mean, sometimes this is why I think novels and films are quite flawed as a medium for addressing this sort of issue, because the story can just be rigged to hammer home its point, and if an uncritical viewer is watching that or reading it, they could be swept along by the emotional characteristics that have deliberately been put there to steer them in a certain direction, regardless of any sensible argument. And it seems that this book has done exactly that. A lot of people have been influenced by it, and they've now got this assumption that wanting to protect the unborn in the womb is somehow part and parcel of the point of view that also includes basically rape should be okay. It should be fine to force women to become pregnant. And again, this barbaric punishment for women who have an abortion, it just helps to create the impression as well. People who are against abortion, well, they're the baddies. They're the baddies. And I think Margaret Atwood knows full well that actually through that, she's trying to present a sort of pro-choice message. Now, this alleged slippery slope, if you restrict abortion, that's going to lead to like forced sex, forced pregnancy for women. Right, I mean, can anyone explain that slippery slope? There's three sorts of slippery slope argument that can be valid. A slippery slope argument can be perfectly correct. But let's think about the three types. Is there a logical slippery slope? If you say the human life in the womb has value, so it shouldn't be killed, are there some logical steps that therefore lead to it should be okay to force women to become pregnant? If there are, I don't know what they are. I mean, is it empirical? Have people said, look, everywhere that abortion is banned, you find in those countries, what they start doing as well is saying it's okay to force women to become pregnant. Is that what happens? No. No, that's not what's happening in history. It's not what's happening now. So that's just wrong. Is it a psychological slippery slope? Is it that as soon as people start thinking the unborn child of the womb is valuable, that just in their psychology and their emotions, it just inevitably leads them to start thinking, so it should be okay to force women to become pregnant? I mean, as a pro-lifer, if you're pro-life, have you experienced that psychological effect? That sort of inevitable stream in that direction? I certainly haven't. Any evidence that other pro-lifers have? No, none at all. Right, another theme in the book is that this society is based on what are claimed to be Christian principles. Now, in fairness, Margaret Atwood does make it clear that this interpretation of Christianity isn't necessarily authentic Christianity. I think a lot of people who read the book don't get that impression. But she does say, this is one interpretation. There are other Christians who don't have that view. She says, for example, Quakers dissent from it. But having said that, one of the main villains of the piece is an ex-TV evangelist. So I think it comes through that there are good and bad Christians. So this dystopian society, that's based on the sort of Christianity of televangelists. So probably more sort of Orthodox, traditional Christians, whereas very liberal Christians, obviously they're okay. I would imagine that that's the sort of thing she's thinking, and I think that's probably what people pick up when they're reading the book as well, including in schools. So the idea is certainly that Christianity can be used as an excuse for horrors. Okay, fair enough. But on the other hand, are they studying any books about where genuine Christian teaching, for example, defends the unborn, it results in positive action? Well, that's not really on the English literature syllabus, is it? So why is this book on the curriculum? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Because the author herself has said she's been very surprised it's used in schools because it's so sexually explicit. And I would agree with her. I don't think it should be used in schools because it is very sexually explicit in some points. But why is it on the curriculum? Because it's about oppressed women, women oppressed by men. It fits with a feminist point of view. Basically, in the book, the men are bad, the women are good. Again, that just fits with the message of Scottish education, of the Scottish government. And this fictional evil of forced sex, making women pregnant against their will, that evil is used to tar a good cause, which is the pro-life cause. As far as the literary quality of the book is concerned, I'm no expert, but I'll give you some thoughts. But I would say this for sure, that if this book had been about a man surviving in a matriarchal dystopia, it would not be on the curriculum in Scotland, no matter how brilliant the writing in it. I mean, I quite enjoyed it. The way the story unfolds is quite engaging. The characters are credible and interesting. Offred herself is an interesting character. You empathise with her. You see her empathy with other people. I'll say some of the description in the book is long and tedious, just gets boring. And the whole feel of the book all the way through is drab. It's soulless, depressing. Even the food, when it's described, you just think, oh, it's really dull. There's nothing to get nothing to attract you to it. So I can see what the author is trying to do. But on the other hand, normally if you have some sort of oppressive, tyrannical society, there's often a side to it where there's pomp, there's maybe some impressive culture, something to inspire loyalty and enthusiasm, at least in the people who are benefiting from it. But that was completely missing. Which, okay, maybe that's the choice she made, but I thought it was a bit unrealistic as well. Right, when I was at school studying English literature, which I didn't do for very long, what did we do? We did World War I poetry, which gave the message, war is bad, war is pointless. But there was nothing to balance it. There was nothing about heroism, nothing about the noble purpose of defeating evil, nothing about that, just war is bad. So politically, I would say there was quite a skewed perspective. We read To Kill a Mockingbird. Obviously a major theme in that is racism. Good book about racism. Okay, good. Reading a book about racism, that's an important point to make to young people. That's fine. But what tends to happen in English literature, I think it comes from the mindset where the most pressing issues in society and in the world are tackling racism and sexism. They are the key issues that we've got to tackle. And so that's what people need to be studying literature about. Now that perspective tends to be associated more with left-wing politics and the sort of social justice mindset. I mean, how about a novel about marital infidelity that wrecks a family? And so the overall theme being punched home is you've got to be faithful to your partner within marriage. Adultery is a really bad thing. Any books with that sort of thing? Is that the thing that the Scottish Qualifications Authority, most English teachers in Scotland, is that the sort of thing they're thinking? That would be a really positive message for my class. No. A couple of years ago, one of my sons came home from school and he said his English teacher had said to him, everyone should be a feminist. I think that basically sums up the message in Scottish schools, and it will stay that way until there's some opposition to it in the Scottish Parliament. Now, if you came to this video hoping to find study notes, well, you found something different, but I hope it's made you think, and maybe you could take this to your class ask your teacher, maybe you could watch it in the class and you could discuss it, see what you think. I'd be fascinated to hear your feedback. But ultimately, my question to you, if you're studying this book at school, is whether or not this is an aspect of education or whether or not there's a bit of indoctrination mixed in with it as well. Okay, do join the Scottish Family Party. There's a link below. That's the end for now, but just before we finish, I don't do this very often, I'll just put an outtake in at the end, which is quite amusing. So anyway, bye for now. It's not unusual on social media that we'll post something with a pro-life message and people will reply, "Handmaid's